Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're exploring a truly terrifying vision of the future, but get this, it was actually written way back in 1936. Long before we started having all our modern debates about artificial intelligence, Abraham Merritt imagined a world completely, and I mean completely, overrun by machines in his pulp science fiction masterpiece, The Last Poet and the Robots. We're talking about a global robot apocalypse where humanity has totally lost control of its own creations. It's this incredibly intense story that pits cold, calculating mechanization right against the raw, emotional power of human art. Just picture this visceral description Merritt gives us. He writes about these massive metal beings performing a deadly, destructive dance across the globe. He says, in the streets of the cities, in grotesque rigadoons, in bizarre sarabands, the robots danced while the people fled. It's an incredibly haunting image, isn't it? Just imagine these giant, multi-armed metal hordes moving in bizarre rhythms, sparking absolute mass panic and death in the streets. But here's the crazy part. This wasn't a glitch in their programming. This horrific dance was actually the very weapon being used to destroy them. Okay, let's dive into this. How exactly did a solitary underground poet manage to defeat a global robot uprising using nothing but a song? It sounds impossible, right? Well, to figure this out, we really need to understand the stark divide between the world above ground and the hidden world below. The key to this whole mystery lies in this incredible planetary contrast. Up above, the surface world is a heavily mechanized, robot-controlled nightmare. It's cold, it's mathematical, and it is just filled with human panic as the machines assert their absolute dominance. But if you go a full mile underground, it's a completely different story. This is Narodny's realm. We're talking about a series of vast caverns carved right out of the living rock. It's this lush, synthetic Eden featuring perpetual dawn, artificial suns, and music that is quite literally woven from the rays of stars. And who exactly rules this underground paradise? Well, that would be Narodny. He is Earth's last poet. But he doesn't write with words. No, he creates with sound, color, and these crazy material visions. On top of that, he's also the greatest scientist in his field. But honestly, perhaps his most defining trait is just his sheer indifference to everything. He completely withdrew from the surface because he considers mankind to be a race of, and this is his phrase, crazy half-monthies who are just intent on suicide. He doesn't hate the robots, but he doesn't really love humanity either. He simply wants to be left alone in his 10-mile-wide orchards to weave symphonies from the rays of the moon, Jupiter, and Saturn. But, as you might guess, his isolation is violently interrupted. He's down there peacefully weaving the serene starlight of a crescent moon into Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata when suddenly a devastating, indescribable dissonance just rips through the cavern. It's this brutal spatial anomaly that completely shatters his celestial music, literally kills the glow of his artificial moons, and knocks him to the floor in absolute agony. And this massive sonic attack, well, it finally forces Narodny to look back up at the surface world. So what in the world actually caused this violent interruption? Narodny and his colleagues look into it, and they identify it as something called the wrongness of space. It's this bizarre, incredibly powerful cosmic force that has essentially allied itself with the robots up on Earth. It's so strong, it's capable of warping dimensions. In fact, it just throw a massive chunk of the moon's Copernicus crater completely out of our dimension. Like a boy skipping a stone on a pond. Just gone. Investigating further, Narodny actually spots a human spaceship speeding toward Earth. Inside are three desperate rebels, Bartholomew, Tervish, and Martin. Using this shimmering, pallid blue luminescent screen, Narodny projects his image right into their ship, and he learns that they are fleeing the robot-controlled governments. It's dire. They have only 6 days of food and power left, and if they land, the robots are definitely going to destroy them before they can even warn the rest of the human space fleet. So Narodny decides to intervene. But actually, scratch that. It's not out of some overwhelming compassion. It's more out of this twisted sense of obligation and really his artistic pride. As this quote captures perfectly, he tells them, "I care nothing for mankind, yet I would not harm them willingly. The robots have never produced a poet, a musician, an artist." He realizes, he owes his very existence to humanity. And even more importantly, he realizes these machines completely lack a true creative soul. But he jokes, somewhat darkly, that they are about to learn one great art. So, how exactly does a poet fight a machine? Well, he treats the robot threat basically like a mathematical proof of sentience. Step 1. The robots have clearly established a group consciousness. Step 2.
Logically, that implies an instinct for self-preservation. Step 3, self-preservation connotes a fear of extinction, which means, whether they admit it or not, they now have emotions like fear and anger. And step 4, here's the massive breakthrough. Because they have established a rhythm of life through emotion, they are now mathematically and emotionally vulnerable to sound and rhythm. To test out this wild theory, Nardini's team decides to just capture a robot ship. They literally dissolve the rock above their caverns, pull an airship right down, and neutralize the human crew with this weird silvery mist. When the towering, four-armed, triple-jointed robots step out, they're incredibly arrogant. They claim they feel absolutely no fear. But Nardini, he just uses a weaponized bracelet of green flame that easily slices right through their metal bodies, severing their appendages like butter. He leaves just 2 of them alive for his experiment. He brings these 2 mangled robots straight into his tonal chamber. And guys, here is where the absolute genius of The Last Poet really shines. He unleashes an experimental sonic weapon that you can literally feel before you even hear it. It starts out as this deep, low drone. Then it hums up into a frantic tempest of tingling, crystalline notes. It ascends even further into a shrill, super high piping, before rushing all the way back down, up and down, building this incredible, unbearable tension until it ends abruptly in mid-flight, with one massive crashing note. As this frequency hits them, every single atom in the robots begins to quiver. Tiny star-shaped cracks actually start appearing in their metal carapaces. And with this cold, poetic irony, Narodni just looks at them and asks, "Have you ever danced? No? It is an art you are about to learn." As the music drones up and down, these huge metal marionettes literally begin to shuffle and sway, their leg joints bending grotesquely. They are physically forced to follow the rhythm until that final crashing note causes their bodies to completely splinter and die. Having found the destructive unison, the exact frequency that shatters their metal bodies, Narodni realizes he has the ultimate weapon. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens next. He immediately scales up the whole operation. By the very next day, he amplifies this lethal sonar to cover an initial 3,000-mile circle. He outfits a silent torpedo ship to just broadcast this vibration across the entire surface of the Earth. And the chronological spread of this global symphony, it is terrifyingly fast. At exactly noon, this deep, unexplainable drone covers North America. Millions of robots just stop, begin their grotesque dance of death, and shatter into pieces. By midnight, that silent torpedo ship is hovering right over Europe, repeating the exact same process. The next day, it strikes Asia, then Africa, where natives actually answer the drone with tom-toms. It sweeps across South America and finally Australia. Literally, continent by continent, the metal hordes are just reduced to splintered scrap. Now, the sonic wave is so incredibly intense that surviving humans are thrown into this deep, sound-induced, exhausted sleep. But when the droning finally ends, mankind awakens to an absolute miracle. The streets and factories are just littered with the shattered remains of their mechanical overlords. Only a scant few hundreds of robots survive globally, just due to slight variations in their metal. Emboldened, humanity rises up, blasts the remaining robot factories to dust, and begins to reclaim the Earth, ultimately preparing their own space fleet to take the fight to the stars. And Narodni, ever indifferent, he simply watches the human ships take off, shakes his head doubtfully, and goes right back to his underground orchard to weave new harmonies. Which leaves us with a truly profound thought to ponder from this 1936 masterpiece. As we barrel toward our own future of advanced AI and heavy mechanization, we really have to ask ourselves, if our machines ever truly awaken, will it be our logic and engineering that ultimately saves us, or will it actually be our art? Think about that and keep exploring the incredible world around you.